All right. Hello, everyone. Um, Welcome. Tonight's kind of cool. I have a couple guests tonight. A couple friends of mine are joining us. I'll bring them in right now. Um, Let me see here. Make sure I hit the right buttons here. Okay. We have a friend of mine she's using an avatar, the Apple avatar here, and going by her Twitter handle. The kids are not all right. We're gonna refer to her as kids for the when we're talking to her here for now. And we also have my friend Steve is joining us as well. Um, both kids and Steve have been kind of involved in raising awareness about what's happening in the schools and what's happening basically in the world in general. And we got connected through that. So it's I'm happy to bring them on tonight, and that they agreed to come on and hang out with me and kind of talk about some things that I'm presenting here. Um, so I don't know. You guys just want to say just a quick hello here. Make sure we got your mics okay and everything.
Yeah, hi. You hear
Kids,
me
okay.
okay?
Yes,
Hi.
there you go.
It's the kids are not all right. You can find me at Twitter. It's at hide your kids 0. I do research and I write about Marxism in K through 12 education.
Right on, right on. Thank you, Steve. How you doing?
And I'm Stephen Welliver. You can find me at my name at Stephen Welliver on Twitter. And yeah, I'm a former math science teacher, former school administrator, and turned construction worker. And I've been fighting, communism. My family originally came from the United States from Bolshevik Ukraine and Russia earlier in the 20th century. So it's an ongoing fight.
Right on, right on. Well, I'm glad that you guys could join me tonight, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the discussion. Um, so I know that the topic that I put on or the title of the live stream I put on tonight is escalation acceleration, and you can you can kind of just feel it. You can feel it in the air. Things are escalating, and I wanted to just kind of bring attention to that. Just number one, because you can feel it happening, but also just kind of as a warning to try to step back from it and not necessarily get caught up in every single thing that's being pumped out. Um, but we'll talk a little bit more about that a little later on. The first thing that I wanted to do was in the beginning of last week's show, I showed a clip um, about a woman talking about being a psychopath, right? And the reason I did that is because I was talking about how I used to call the kind of like the ruling establishment. I used to call them the ruling elites or things like that. And I got on a little bit of a rant in terms of they're not really elites. They're morons. They're you know they're psychopaths. Um, so I thought it would be a good idea to kind of show people what psychopathy is and how it manifests and to know that some people that are in charge of things, whether they're politicians or whether they're this woman is a lawyer. They could be doctors. They could be high functioning, very intelligent people who just don't really have empathy, don't really have care or caring for other people. So I just wanted to show this. Give me a minute to bring it up on the stage here. I just wanted to show this video so we can learn more about what this is all about.
What is your background, and how did you come to realize that you had psychopathy?
My pseudonym is Emmy Thomas. I wrote the book Confessions of a Sociopath, a life spent hiding in plain sight. I'm a lawyer. I'm middle-aged now. I am a diagnosed psychopath. I have a big family. I live in a small community in California where I grew up. I enjoy playing with my nieces and nephews. I was a music major, and I have a jam session later on that I'm going to, and I mostly just live a normal life. I think I never understood the word psychopathy. I never understood the word psychopath until I was doing an internship. It was during law school, and I had a office mate who, this internship, it was supposed to be like a 9 to 5 thing, but really we only had like 2 hours of work per day or something. So we started talking, and she was a very interesting person. I think that the nature of the conversations were probably maybe a little bit more open than I realized. After several weeks of this, she said, you might want to consider the possibility that you're a sociopath. And so I just looked it up and found a website that had 12 criteria or something. And I kind of read through it, and I was like, actually, this does seem to fit. People had been telling me all my life, think more about others, consider others. What about other people's safety? What about other people's feelings? What about other people's needs? And that was not a very useful thought for me, because I was so bad at it. I mean, just went so far against the grain that I basically, I was terrible at it. I even if I tried to, I'd forget the next day, and then it was like back to the same sort of behavior. And I think one of the things that kind of struck me is that, probably the labels that I think fit more closely are that I really didn't feel guilt. I understood that I didn't feel guilt. I understood that people had tried to shame me before into feeling guilt. I remember this time when I was 8 or 9 or something. We're watching TV, and there's this kid on the screen, and he was, disabled or something. And I made a joke about it. I made a joke about how he was disabled. And my dad said, have you no empathy? And was just kind of like shocked and disturbed by whatever the joke was. And I thought to myself, what is empathy? And maybe I don't have it, because, I think I asked him, what is empathy? And he started telling me, okay, you start feeling for other people. And I thought, well, definitely I don't do this. I mean, it is one of my more negative traits, especially when during my 20s. I call that kind of like the playground stage, because that was when all of my psychopathic traits were at their peak. And if somebody cried, I would get angry with them. I thought crying is kind of a manipulative tactic, because I don't understand crying, especially if we had a close relationship. They were a friend for several years. They know I don't understand the crying. Why are they crying? Almost kind of like a use your words with a toddler thing. That would be my reaction with them. And then, of course, they just keep crying, because it's a terrible thing to engage with somebody. You're crying, you're upset, So I had a friend whose dad was dying of cancer. And after a while, I just couldn't take it anymore. I was like, you know what? You are way too emotional. I cannot handle your emotion. Let's take a break from each other. And I think her dad died while we were during this break, that I took, which was, I can't handle your emotion while your dad's dying. I mean, now I look back at it and I think that's not being a good friend. But at the time, I just thought, honestly, I do not have the emotional depth, the capacity, the empathy to be able to deal with this.
Yeah. So, let me see. What we got here? Get the three of us back in here. That's first of all, I give this woman credit for being, I guess she wrote a book about it. She's out on YouTube talking about it. I give her credit for raising awareness about how this affects her. But this is it's incredibly, it's great. It's scary. It's very scary to think that, there's people out there that just whatever that disconnect is. But anyway, so I just wanted to bring this up so that people are aware, first of all, that there's people like this out there, and that in they can certainly find their way into being in charge of things. Certainly, there's other personality disorders that are prevalent among people who find their way to leadership positions, and certainly maybe we can touch base on those over time. I know there's like the cluster B personality types, and maybe we could talk about them some more as well. But I just wanted to kind of bring this in and raise a little bit of awareness about the
Yeah, like
mentality of some people. Go ahead.
out of
Yes.
curiosity, I pulled out my DSM and I looked up the prevalence rates of antisocial personality disorder.
Just
And
real
it's
quick,
at
just real quick, would you
oh,
mind explain what
yeah.
DSM is? I'm sorry,
So,
just because go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. So the DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It's what like psychologists and therapists and doctors use to diagnose things. It usually includes things like prevalence rates and other information. So you can refer to things. Antisocial personality disorder is a cluster B, I'm pretty sure. But its prevalence rate, 12-month prevalence rate is between 0.2 and 3.3%, which I mean, over 3% is a pretty high amount of people to be walking around with this. And then when I
Sure.
looked up, I don't know how accurate it is, but I just kind of Googled, like over prevalence or over incidence in like the workplace, and they're saying like 3 to 4% in like senior positions of business. So you can kind of
Yeah.
see how that personality type naturally rises in certain environments.
Yeah, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. Um, so yeah, no, thank you for adding that in there. Um, it's crazy. So I wanted to also just kind of bring up this next thing. This quote was going around. Um, it's a George Soros quote. It was going around the internet again. I had seen it before, but it was kind of going around again this week. And I just wanted to kind of like tie this in as well a little bit in terms of another way that people think of themselves and what their role in the world is, right? So this is George Soros quote. It says, "I fancied myself as some kind of god. If truth be known, I carried some rather potent messianic fantasies with me from childhood, which I felt I had to control. Otherwise, they might get me in trouble. It is a sort of disease when you consider yourself some kind of god, the creator of everything. But I feel comfortable about it now since I began to live it out." Right? I mean, so this is just like, I guess, a whole I don't know, potentially like a whole nother level of how some people see themselves and what their role is to try to control the world and and he's certainly trying to do it. This is another quote too that I think you guys will be familiar with, that I wanted to put on here. Another quote from George Soros from his book, The Alchemy of Finance, right? He says, "The scientific method seeks to understand things as they are, while alchemy seeks to bring about a desired state of affairs." So he's talking about science and scientific method. In this case, he's talking about basically what we actually believe in the scientific method and science, not this like scientism or science capital S, Dr. Fauci science version. But so he says scientific method seeks to understand things as they are, while the alchemy seeks to bring about desired state of affairs. To put it another way, the primary objective of science is truth, that of alchemy, operational success. And in this quote and in this book is he's advocating for this operational success, this idea of basically putting truth, not caring as much about truth, but caring about operational success. And this is just how some people think. Okay. See what else I was gonna bring up here.
I might add something to that real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
I think there's these leaders, these people in leadership positions who have this pathological way of thinking, but what we really need to be concerned.
Okay, so you cut off a little bit there. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but you cut off there. We'll come back to you. Oh, go ahead. There you go. Go ahead. You're back now. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay.
Yep.
What I was going to say is that there's these people in leadership positions that have a pathological way of thinking, but there's also the careerists who are a key problem in the early Soviet Union with supporting the lies and will believe anything and follow anything just to be careerists. And I think that's a problem we have in the United States currently, is replicating that same phenomenon of the careerists bowing to every lie and following the party line, whatever it is, just for operational success, not for truth.
Right on. Is that what James Lindsay kind of refers to as the strivers? Is that similar? Is that a similar, or is that something maybe? Have you heard him talk about that?
Yeah, the careerist is the specific term that Lenin ever that was used in the Soviet Union by the average person. I guess that would be similar. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, man. So just a little bit more on the way people think here. Let me pop this up. Okay, let's see here. We got this one sharing. Give me a second. So this is a post from Right Side on Twitter. Dr. Joshua Bach, who has worked as a researcher at MIT and Harvard, says that he thinks that in the future, our children may no longer be biological. So I guess I'm kind of like, maybe all these ways of thinking aren't necessarily the same, but I just wanted to show, just different ways of how some of these people think, and where they want to bring society. So let's just pop this through here.
The development of AGI is basically like apes back in the day, stupid monkey.
So he said AGI. There's the audience member is asking a question. He's talking about artificial general intelligence, right? So I'll bring that back again.
The development of AGI is basically like apes back in the day, stupid monkeys, deciding to have more intelligent offspring. And now I wonder, this hasn't really worked out for them. Humans nowadays basically don't live in harmony with nature. And I don't see how they could really develop shared ethics, shared goals. How are we supposed to go about such a thing? Because basically the societies in human nature that have lived in harmony with nature in history, they don't seem to be very competitive nowadays in capitalism.
Yeah, these apes that you descend from, they're all dead. But they're not dead because you killed them. They're dead because of old age, right? Back then. They died to make space for their great-grandkids. And they probably want their grandkids to succeed in the same way as I want my children and grandchildren to succeed. And to succeed, we need to adapt. The way in which you adapt an evolutionary environment is by mutation and selection. Well, everybody loves mutation, everybody hates selection, especially when you're being selected against. If you want to escape this, you probably need some kind of intelligent design, a way to adapt in situ, to adapt your organism without dying, without new generations. But you're not there yet. It's not possible in a biological evolution. Biological evolution engenders suffering. But when you look into the far distant future, you probably don't want your children to look like you, because the world is going to be different. If you want to settle Mars with your children should be adapted to living on Mars. And I think that some of our children will probably not biological. And I'm just looking for a way in which our biological and non-biological children can get along.
Okay, so
So this guy's talking about some of our children not being biological, right? And this is kind of this movement towards transhumanism and how they think they can like get away from our biology. And they talk about it as if it's a normal stage of evolution. And to me, like, this is insane. Like, these people are crazy. This stuff is incredibly dangerous. Let me just there's another one here that I wanted to that's similar, but
And notice his language, how he
go
described
ahead.
biology. Notice how he described biology as suffering that we needed to be emancipated from.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's crazy, man. These people are crazy. Anyway, so this next one is from Joe Allen on Twitter. Let me play this here.
It's really simple. I basically don't trust anything in reality. Not authority, not my mind, not my perception, nothing. I just trust data and numbers. And the only thing I believe in is I don't want to die.
Brian Johnson is a successful entrepreneur who has spent every minute of the last 3 years entirely devoted to not just slowing the aging process, but actually reversing it.
What if I tried to become the best in history at not dying? Because we're up against this wall of fog with superintelligence. We can't see past it. The moment you apply this superintelligence, computational intelligence, even its current form, not even future forms, it breaks humans' brains of what is actually genius, what is possible. And so our future is basically going to be a continuous stream of breaking our reality. So I call this Gen Zero. And this is basically to say, like, hey, everybody, we're right now in a moment, like the last moment where like things kind of have been how they have been, but they're about to change radically. And in this new future, we can't predict what's going to happen. We no longer have that ability. And so we're living in a zeroth world. And so Gen Zero is a group of multi-ethnic, multinational people who rise up and they say, we are willing to courageously step into the future. And we're willing to divorce or open to divorce from ourselves all human norms, all human customs, all human thought. And we're willing to say we're wide open about everything. Absolute blank slate.
Yeah, so this guy's talking about Gen Zero, and we called it the zeroth something. Like, it just reminds me of Pol Pot and his year zero kind of destruction of everything and starting over. This is it's insane. It's insane. And these people have a lot of influence and they're really trying to push things in this direction. That's also part of the whole transgender issue, trying to get kids to disassociate their from their bodies, from reality, to move from transgenderism into transhumanism, to try to make that step, kind of like a natural progression. And that's a big part of what's happening behind the transgender movement. So anyway, it's crazy. It's scary. It's really scary the way these people think. Let me see here. Okay. So I'm going to move on kind of to a different topic here. This relates to what we talked about last week in terms of January 6th, the riots at the protests and the riots at the Capitol building, and how that's being used as a it's being used by the Democrats and the establishment Republicans to crush Trump, to crush the MAGA movement, the America First movement. They're making it out to be an insurrection, as a coup. So they're really using that as a way to try to crush Trump. It's a major strategy that they're using. Anyway, so I watched a debate last week or the week before, or whatever. It was about the January 6th event, let's say. And there was a group of people who were arguing that it was an insurrection, and a group of people that were arguing that it wasn't. And I came across this video. It's kind of a wrap up of Glenn Greenwald's comments, and it's kind of comical too. Whoever made the video is fun. It's kind of funny. They kind of slap around this guy from the other side. But anyway, let me bring this up because I think it makes some good points, and it was pretty funny too, as far as I'm concerned. Let me bring this up here.
Was this an attempted coup? Do you guys think this was an attempted coup?
Of course it was. Obviously it was. An attempted coup. What is that if not a coup? Coup or an insurrection?
Was this an attempted coup?
By the way,
Do you guys think this
first
was
of
an
all,
attempted
right? So these two guys, these are brothers over here. I think they're called the Kazan. I don't know how to pronounce their last name, Kazantine brothers or whatever. This guy right here in the middle kind of is goes by Destiny, right? Then you have Alex Jones, you have Darren Beatty, and on screen in the back you have Glenn Greenwald. But Alex Jones was completely out of control in this debate. You could already see him kind of like jumping out of his seat in the beginning. But this particular clip doesn't focus on him too much or at all.
Was this an
really.
attempted coup? Do you guys think this was an attempted coup?
Of course it was. Obviously it was. An attempted coup. What is that if not a coup? Coup or an insurrection? Attempted coup. It's an attempted coup. A coup. It's a coup. Definition of a coup.
If this were a coup, why didn't Trump order the military to seize control of power and turn over the election process to him? Why didn't he order the armed factions that form the law enforcement part of the military and the executive branch that serve under his command to do that as well? That's what happens in a coup. That didn't happen here because Trump wasn't trying to perpetrate a coup. On top of that, none of the videotapes that were available was made available to the public except for very deceitfully chosen snippets. And it was only within the last several months that we saw all of the video footage. And what it showed makes a joke of the idea that this was a coup. If he had ordered the military or some other FBI or any of those agencies, the CIA, to go and use violence on domestic soil in order to ignore those court rulings the way people do when they're trying to implement coups, you would have a good argument. He didn't do any of that. He invoked all of his legal rights in the judiciary and in the Congress. He lost and he walked out of the White House on January 20th. He did not have to be dragged out. He wasn't arrested by the military, which is what happens in coups. So much of this is because you only started paying attention to politics in 2016. You only live in the United States. You have no idea about history or anything that happens in other countries. You have no idea what a coup is. The reason it matters, Destiny, is because if you're going to make arguments, there has to be an important test, which is, do you apply the same principles you're claiming to profess and believe in to cases where it undermines your partisan allegiance and your ideology, not only where it helps it? That's one of the key tests for determining the authenticity of your argument. And so if you don't think the 2020 protest movement was an insurrectionary movement against the United States government, there's no way to claim what January 6th was, especially since Trump could have done so much more to cause a coup that he did not do because that wasn't his aim ever.
Oh, my neck!
All right, so that was that. I don't know, that just made me laugh. That was funny, but it also kind of summed up. It summed up what. It summed up that really that whole debate. Like Glenn Greenwald really was the most, brought the most kind of like facts and explanation to the debate. Obviously, Darren Beatty did as well, but and you can watch the whole video if you go to Rumble. I believe it's on Glenn Greenwald's channel. It's probably on Alex Jones's channel as well. a matter of fact, I think Glenn Greenwald did another debate, just him and this guy Destiny here recently. So you can watch that as well. I know. I mean, this was obviously just one-sided, all Glenn speaking and giving his thoughts. But I watched this whole thing, and it was totally out of control. It was ridiculous. But Glenn really focused in on the important points. So I just wanted to go back to that and show you that clip for a few minutes. All right. So like I said, so the title of tonight's live stream is Escalation, Acceleration, right? So there's just a few things that I kind of wanted to mention about that. So we have escalation with things happening on our southern border, right? With the Texas National Guard kind of taking control of, really, it's a very small portion, this Eagle Pass area. There was a lot of migrants, illegal immigrants coming across there, but they're coming across in a lot of different places. But they did kind of secure that area. There's a whole back and forth between Texas and the federal government. And now there's like a convoy of people going down to support the Texas National Guard down there, right? So this whole thing down there is kind of escalating. You have events in the Middle East continuing to kind of escalate between the ships being the commercial ships being attacked. Obviously and terribly, three soldiers were killed in an attack on an army base in Jordan this past week. And there's all kinds of rhetoric flying around there. Just something to keep in mind with that. There's someone that I follow that has a good track record and gives a lot of insight. And one thing that he's saying is, look out for or keep in mind the Biden administration trying to make some type of deal with Iran over their natural gas and oil resources. So like there might be a lot of stuff in the news and that's being put out that there's all this conflict and stuff, but at the same time behind the scenes there could potentially be deals being made relating to energy. So I just wanted to mention that. And then obviously, so I thought this was interesting too, and I'm going to bring some of this stuff up. There's more rhetoric coming out now about war with Russia, and whether this is just a narrative being driven to kind of like get people to fall in line or to get people to maybe support support Ukraine more, whatever it is. But I just wanted to point out this narrative that's being driven coming from various countries in Europe and also Australia. So let me just show you that real quick. So this is the UK military floating conscription programming, war drums in Europe intensifying, right?
To have Tobias Elwood with us this morning. It's good to see you. Very serendipitous because somebody who you'll know well, General Sir Patrick Saunders. I'm not sure if you served with him, but certainly you have. So you did. So he's suggesting, reading between the lines in the Telegraph today, that if we go to war with Russia, we could find that our youth may have to be conscripted. That's a bit alarming.
Yes, head of the British Army, one of the most cerebral thinkers that we've got, a strategist. We need to listen and listen carefully. We've been too complacent. I think I've said this many times. with you. What's coming over the horizon should shock us. It should worry us, and we are not prepared. We've had a couple of decades, 3 decades or so since the Cold War. Life has gone well. It's now going to get more difficult as authoritarian states exploit our timidity, our perhaps reluctance to really put fires out. And the best
Have to buy a sell with us this morning.
Okay. So that's that's them talking about conscription in the UK to be ready for war with Russia. Let me see here. We have this article here. Now, this is coming from the New Voice of Ukraine. So like I said, you have to take the source, first of all these are establishment controlled sources. And one of the things that I'm trying to point out is not only to look for patterns in the narrative, but also understand where it's coming from and why they might be trying to present a certain narrative. So this says war between NATO and Russia is imminent, according to secret German armed forces document. And this is just a short article, right? A major armed conflict between NATO and Russia is imminent if a secret document from the German armed forces is to be believed, with Russia invading NATO's Baltic states as early as July. Let me see here. The German armed forces are preparing for a potential hybrid attack by Russia on NATO's eastern flank this February. Right. So you have, reports coming from the UK, reports coming out of Germany, and then also this particular thing I'm just going to show. I'm not going to read the article here, but just as another kind of headline from an article out of Australia. Australia must consider bringing back conscription as all-out war with Russia looms, expert says. Also must consider reintroducing conscription to boost its troops numbers in the face of a looming all-out war with Russia. Okay, that's exactly, okay. The subtitle is exactly what this. Anyway, like I said, the point here is I just wanted to make you aware of this narrative. What's the reason for the narrative? Why is it coming out now? Why is it all coming out from all these different countries, at the same time? I just wanted to kind of like bring that to your attention to think about.
So
Yes,
without without necessarily like speaking to, the veracity of these reports or,
Yes.
lack thereof, I just think it's important for everyone to remember, that we're in a psychological war, and fear is a primary tool. So just keep that in mind, like as you take in resources like this or, observe chatter and stuff like that, that a primary goal is most likely to engender fear in you. It's also worth noting, so there's this concept that we get from The Art of War by Sun Tzu. It's called the Golden Bridge. So basically you surround your enemy on 3 sides and then you leave one side open. That side open is, basically you wear them down, demoralize them, make them, fearful, all that. And then you take advantage of that by providing an off-ramp. So, when you see things like this and, experience like the anxiety and the fear that come with it, just keep these things in mind that there might be more going on.
Thank you for sure. That is like, and like I said, when I made the title for this stream, escalation, acceleration, like on one hand, like you can feel it, like you can feel us, you can feel everything kind of building and everyone kind of like gearing. Everyone knows like this year with the election coming up at the end of the year, and kind of like the stakes are so high. Both sides think if the other side win, it's going to be the end of the country. Like all of this stuff, right? So you have that kind of environment, but at the same time, kind of exactly what you said, you have to be aware that, a lot of this stuff is being driven to get people to be anxious and fearful. And, you know, I just want to kind of remind everybody that, you know, the establishment really uses, you know, lies and fear and manipulation, and then, you know, kind of, and censorship on other voices to that have a counter view, right? All because they want to control the information flow. So exactly what you said is psychological warfare, it's, you know, information warfare. So, you know, that's like the big point that that I want people to think about. So, and kids, you mentioned the, you know, the reflexivity the other day when we were talking, and this is, I just wanted to, if I can bring this up real quick, I just wanted to play a couple minutes of this podcast by James Lindsay. I'm just going to play like the first like 5 minutes of it, because he talks about how it's important, you know, not, you know, how people react to what's being presented to us. Because just like you said, kids, right? People are you know, they're creating these narratives, they're creating these situations to intentionally get people to react a certain way. And it's, you know, it's important to step back from kind of the craziness of it and kind of maybe see a bigger picture. I'm just going to play this for, you know, for just a few minutes. It's actually a 23-minute podcast on this, but I'm just going to play about 5 minutes of it just to give everybody the general idea. Let me bring it up on the screen here. This particular
Hey everybody,
video.
it's James Lindsay. You're listening to another exciting episode of New Discourses Bullets, where I give a bullet point type summary of one single topic from woke Marxism that you need to understand so we can beat it. We got to talk about reflexivity. So I don't want to talk about reflexivity like all out reflexivity, but the short version of reflexivity is when everybody has to talk about certain things, and in a certain way, you're in a reflexive environment where if you're not talking about it, it becomes a subject of conversation that you're not talking about it. Why hasn't so-and-so commented on what's so-and-so's take? Why are they so silent? A reflexive environment is one where everybody has to talk about a certain thing. That thing is going to be very polarizing, and there are either going to be one or two right ways to talk about it, usually that are going to be diametrically opposed to one another. And that means it's a dialectical weapon. When George Soros famously shorted the pound sterling in like 92 or whatever, which led to him writing The Alchemy of Finance, where he said that alchemy is not interested in truth like the scientific method. It's interested in operational success. The method, he said, that they used to do the alchemy of finance was reflexivity. The idea is that you start ginning up an idea and make the idea becomes true because everybody starts talking about it and believing it in a particular way. So the current thing takes place in a reflexive environment. What do I mean by that for the four normies still listening to my podcast that don't know what the current thing is? Whatever the big active measure, whether it's we've all got to talk about Ukraine war right now. Oh, we've all got to talk about COVID-19 right now, or vaccines or masks or 2 masks. Whatever that breathless thing is, BLM. Do you think that Black Lives Matter? Whatever that thing that we all have to talk about breathlessly currently right now, and if we don't do it right away, we're missing an important window. That's a reflexive thing. And so the reflexive environment is the environment in which social and political, and I guess to a degree, economic alchemy takes place. What Soros did was he bet hard against the pound sterling, and then he started a reflexive media environment that, oh, it doesn't look good for the pound. It doesn't look good for the pound. It doesn't look good for the pound. And everybody's is the pound in trouble? Is the pound in trouble? What's going to happen with the pound? And by using his media connections, he was able to put a lot of stuff out that made it look like the pound might be in trouble, created a sense of inevitability. The sense of inevitability came true. And then you end up he ended up making billions of dollars because he had bet against the pound and then created a reflexive environment that the pound might be in bad shape and it might be looking at a rough time. So another way to put it is that a reflexive statement is a statement that becomes true or becomes false based on whether or not somebody believes it or doesn't believe it. The kind of archetypal reflexive statement is this is a revolutionary moment. If everybody starts believing it's a revolutionary moment and now is the moment to be revolutionary, guess what you're going to have? A revolution. So it came true. If nobody believes it, it's going to fizzle. Nothing's going to happen. So it's not true or false in and of itself. It becomes true or false based on whether or not everybody starts believing it. And if the big narratives that they push are designed to get everybody to get swept up in a reflexive movement that rapidly changes people's values and views, expectations, and so on. It's almost like social contagion or the madness of crowds or mass, what do they call it? Mass something psychosis, mass effect psychosis, whatever it was that Matthias Desmet said about. And so the idea is that you're going to make everybody start talking about things in one or two ways. If it's one, it's that you want everybody to go in a particular way. There's only one right answer. Black Lives Matter, the end. If it's two, what you want is to create a polarized environment that is split and toxic and fighting and causes people to veer toward the extremes and away from one another and away from the middle. And so that's how reflexive environments work. Many leftist active measures, which is the correct name for these things, narrative-driven active measures in particular, are designed to create a reflexive environment. In fact, the way that it works is that the reflexive environment builds up through narrative. There's, hey, something's wrong. Hey, something's wrong. Hey, something's wrong. Hey, and they build it up and they build it up and build it up, article after article after article. Oh, Elon Musk took over Twitter. The internet is less safe. The safety on the internet is going down. Look at all this bad language. Look at all this hate speech, the safety on the internet. But look at all these risks of cyber attacks. Look at all the people he fired. Maybe there's going to be cyber attacks and you have to build this up. And then there's a precipitating event where all of a sudden the reflexive environment, all that reflexive potential that was built up by the narrative is ignited all at once into a reflexive environment. And in the reflexive environment, we have to make a lot of very fast political decisions, because if you don't get swept up in the movement of the reflexive environment, you're out of touch, you're on the wrong side of history, you're a bad person. BLM is exactly that. That's what happened in 2020. So let me...
Okay, so you know, like we were saying, like it's important. It's really important to be able to detect the patterns and see what narratives are being created that the establishment wants people to kind of move towards, or get into conflict with. But you have to be careful to not get wrapped up in it and react the way that they're trying to get you to react, right? So there's that website, Beautiful Trouble, and it's basically the strategy and tactics for kind of leftist operations. And one of the things that they talk about is your opponent's your real action is your opponent's reaction, right? You're trying to get people to react a certain way to head them in a certain direction, almost like kids mentioned earlier, with that Golden Bridge description. They're trying to get people to go a certain direction.
Just something really quick to add.
Sure.
That it's just worth keeping in mind that like this kind of reflexivity, it employs like fertile fallacies, like persuasive fallacies. So, another way to put that is, quote, like a lie that has legs. So keep that in mind that, there might be, well, there will be probably some truth to the lie. And it'll look, reasonably appealing and if you're looking at it from a really narrow perspective, it'll seem totally fine. So just try to zoom out, see how, there might be another dynamic going on, see like ulterior motives, and just try not to get swept up in these, very emotional movements.
Right on. Thank you. So I'm going to change topics a little bit now. We got a few minutes left. Where are we at here? Yeah, a little over 5 minutes left. So we'll finish up with a couple other kind of topics. This one here is kind of interesting. It's Michelle Obama, right? Michelle Obama may already be working on a 2024 White House bid. Now, acknowledgement to kids here. She's been kind of like floating this out there as a possibility, as something to keep an eye out for a while now, and it's people are just trying to figure out, are they really going to run? Are they really going to run Joe Biden? Like, is he really going to stay in, or at some point he's going to, there's going to be an announcement, they're going to pull him back and put someone else forward. So like Vivek Ramaswamy in one of the Republican debates put out, he basically came right out and said it. He told the Democratic Party straight up, he's like, you'll come out and fess up. You're going to pull Joe Biden. You're going to put in, Gavin Newsom or Michelle Obama or somebody else, he said. But he certainly mentioned Gavin Newsom and Michelle Obama by name. And, this is just something that everyone kind of sees potentially happening. Now, Vivek also kind of a couple weeks later mentioned that, he also sees on the Republican side how Nikki Haley is being kind of propped up as the establishment uniparty candidate, and basically all the donor money that they were hoping DeSantis was going to kind of fill that position, and it was his donors kind of like shifted over to Haley, and basically she's the establishment candidate on the Republican side. So anyway, there's all kinds of speculation as whether or not Michelle Obama is going to run now, and whether or not, it was actually James Lindsay who posted this one tweet, and he kind of posted in a way that they're kind of floating this out there. They're floating this balloon out there to see if it has any legs, right? If people kind of bite onto it. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I know what kids thinks about it, but we'll see what happens there. And the final thing here, just kind of real quick, and this might seem kind of silly, as well to some extent. Let me see what I got. I want to make sure I pull up the right thing. Let me just pull this here. So this is about Taylor Swift. She's been in the news lately, right, with the whole Kansas City Chiefs and her boyfriend on the football player on the Chiefs and the NFL, and how she's traveling around all these cities with them, and then there was discussion of whether or not she was a psyop for the Democrats, or even the establishment. My feeling is that she definitely is a psyop. She's definitely being not, certainly she's talented. Certainly she was very popular before, but she's been blown up this year in terms of her tour. She, cover of Time magazine, I believe it was, just a nonstop coverage. And, the Democratic Party is definitely looking to her to try to bring in more voters and support them. And that might sound crazy, but like celebrities, whether they're entertainers or actors, whatever, have been used as psyops for pretty much forever. And it's definitely a thing. What is it this year? What does it say? this was on CNN, I guess. Biden campaign eyes Taylor Swift endorsement. I mean, that's that's pretty obvious. I just want to play this real quick. This is, and I got this from Mike Benz on Twitter. This is a NATO. Let me see here. A conference of cyber conflict organized by NATO, Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence. Right. So let me just play this here. You hear what they have to say about using celebrities to fight misinformation and disinformation and to promote a particular agenda. Right.
Think about how would we actually do this in a way that would work with people, so potentially as like a peaceful information operation. And I'm going to be addressing risks and concerns with each of the 4 main categories. All right, so the first one, that's the most famous and the most common, is working with famous people or main influencers to share information or a particular message. So I include Taylor Swift in here because she's
So keep in mind, this is 2019, right? They're already talking about using Taylor Swift as someone, as an influencer to prop up their message.
You know, she's a fairly influential online person. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's actually, this is a cropped image, but she's standing next to a, go vote sign. And actually celebrities, at least in the US, regularly will post pictures of themselves with an encouragement to people to go vote. And this has a measurable effect on voter turnout. Now, when it comes to countering an IO, the particular message, one needs to consider whether or not the opinion leader actually wants to share that message, because it may or may not be popular, and they may or may not know how to share it without accidentally increasing more in misinformation. However, this is one that's a relatively accessible and understandable approach. Next, segmentation. That's a group-based effort where it's more interacting with people in a particular group or similar positions, or help them counter misinformation, disinformation specific to that community. An example may be helping a community where accounts are covertly trying to kind of enter the community and influence them, helping the members of that community identify those accounts themselves. If you're going to go with a group-based approach, I think it's important to recognize that could be perceived as an attack on the community. So a level of trust needs to be kept.
All right. So anyway, that was NATO talking about using celebrities, and specifically Taylor Swift as an influencer to prop up their messaging. And like I said, this is Mike Benz. This is where I got that video from. He actually made some comments on the video there, which was pretty good. But he got in kind of a rant and was firing off a few F-bombs and things like that. So I decided not to hold off on that one for this live stream. But anyway, he says, "Where's my damn sign? Taylor Swift is an instrument of statecraft." So anyway, it's 8 o'clock now, a little after 8. We'll go ahead and wrap up. We'll go ahead and wrap up here. So anyway, did kids or Steve, you have anything to kind of, did you have anything else to say before I wrap up? Or I appreciate you guys coming on. You're welcome anytime. I really enjoyed having you here, and this was fun. This was fun. I enjoyed it, and you guys definitely add a lot of insight, which I appreciate. So yeah. So anybody, and those of you that are watching, if you appreciate the videos, if you would consider sharing them, liking them, subscribe to the channel, that would be a big help. Otherwise, we'll catch you next Thursday. So we'll see you then. Thanks a lot. Take care.